It is the latest installment of the ever so harmless Maid type series. It's the cute and pink sweetie whose favorite candle scent is Gunpowder. It is MID03 Clear Maid, with the kits of Power Missile, Power Napalm, Hyper Missile, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Bomber, which converts a portion of the leg's shoot or melee resist into power when using a Gunpowder skill exclusively. Now, as yet another child designed by Fujioka Kenki himself, we most certainly are getting spoiled with these very high-quality designs that take a lot of the very simple or harmless motifs that we may have had for quite some time, Maid in particular this time around, and making them an absolute powerhouse and unit of a model that, when used correctly on the field, can be an absolute force to be reckoned with. And it is worth noting that when it comes to the MID series in particular, this one is probably going to be the most aggressive one to date. Power Missile on the head part is a brand new skill being introduced into the game, but when it comes to what it does, it's really nothing special compared to what we've already seen with anything that has power in front of it. Basically, it's just regular missile, which is a full AoE attack, which is equal damage across all active parts. But if the user's legs are intact, they get a times 1.5 damage bonus. Of course, on the premise that you can't dodge or defend while you're in your cooldown, so standard rules for any kind of power-based attack. Power Rifle, Giga Gatling, Power Hammer, and so on and so forth. Power Napalm on the right arm is the exact same thing as another brand new skill to the game. It is also a Gunpowder skill, but unlike Missile, it is a scattered AoE skill, meaning it will damage one part normally, and then two others randomly at 1/3 damage each. But much like Power Missile, Power Napalm also gets the 1.5 damage bonus if the legs are intact. So again, it's considered a new skill as far as the game is concerned, but as far as what it brings to the table, it's really nothing different aside from just a much more aggressive version of what we already have. Hyper Missile on the left arm is probably the only skill that is not new when it comes to the attacking parts on Clear Maid. It's basically just standard missile, but instead of it being an AoE attack, it is a piercing damage attack. And this one's probably going to be the most consistent when it comes to breaking parts and not scattering damage for inconsistent scattering damage, like I said. Now, the drawback to that, which gives Power Missile and Power Napalm an advantage, is that thanks to Silent Leader, because of that full AoE or the scattered AoE, it does make flushing out the enemy leader a lot easier if you damage the head part successfully. Whereas with Hyper Missile, it's just a lot easier at just breaking things, because all the damage is more focused on the part it's targeting and not trying to spread itself too thinly. Plus, those tie in very, very nicely with the leg ability of Bomber, which, to refresh, is actually not a new leg ability. We have actually had this for a while, ever since the rerun of the Cyber Kitty Koro-chan collaboration, where Neko Danger was the first one to implement this skill. But, unlike Neko Danger, who implemented it but didn't quite use it to its full advantage, Clear Maid is basically going to make it very clear that Gunpowder is her favorite scent, and that's basically the only way that she knows how to clean the halls when she's on her shift. But that also is very nice, as to explain Bomber briefly, it's essentially like Weapon Master for Gunpowder skills, which makes it a very simple and very easy to understand skill. The higher your shoot or your melee resist, the more that gets converted into damage when you choose to use a Gunpowder skill. Now, again, that can be Missile, Power Missile, Napalm, Hyper Missile. As long as it's a Gunpowder skill, you can still make use of it with this. When it comes to stats across the board too, she's actually packing some very solid numbers, both in armor, mobility, and in power all across the board. When it comes to armor, she's packing about 4,100 for the head part, 3,600 for that right arm, 3,400 for the left, and legs are packing about 4,500 as a total. So compared to most other standard or most fragile female models at that, Clear Maid is most certainly able to take a blow relatively well without it crippling her too easily. And with a base mobility of 792, she may not be the fastest on the field compared to what we're used to and kind of spoiled with at this point, but that's still not quite something to really write off the table just yet, as more often than not these base numbers will be going up with relative to terrain compatibility, to Meta-Rotter bonus, and so on. In addition to this, when it comes to her other specs, an evade of 616, I'm not going to say it's terrible, but it's also not great either. Probably one of the big weaknesses that she has. as it means she will not be dodging or grazing things a lot or really putting a lot of emphasis on that. But having a melee resist of 1129 and a shoot resist of 1432 means that she is packing some very solid armor and some very good resistance too to keep her damage as low as possible while she's on the field. Now, she actually has a very weirdly good synergy with herself too, and it's for this reason that as a pure set score, I do have to rate her a very strong 7.5 out of 10 as a pretty well-rounded model. She has access to an AoE skill, a scatter skill, a piercing skill, and a leg ability that complements all three of those, basically makes her a perfect, for lack of a better term, all-rounder in this case when it comes to making things explode and dealing as much collateral damage as she can possible while she's on the field. She's got very good stats to synergize with her kit as well. Even if she is packing 2 heavy parts and a support for that as well with her legs, that's still pretty good overall as well, and she's a set that you can basically use right out of the box with no real need to support her or anyone to set her up so she can make use of what she can do what she does best. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate her relatively equally at a lower end of the 7.5 scale, primarily for the fact that Power Missile and Power Napalm are very good for what they bring to the table, and those base stats at just close to low 1400s to almost 1500s there is very nice too. But if I'm being honest with you, they're not really anything that's gonna like make or break if you choose to use them or not use them. Hyper Missile, and especially a non-heavy one at that, is going to be it's probably going to be the best used part on her for what that brings, especially because all 3 skills also are guaranteed hit when they are capped at 5-star. Her legs are packing some very good stats too, so if you're using them exclusively for numbers, I'm not going to stop you, but just do bear in mind that the Bomber leg ability is very exclusive, and it's one of those leg abilities where if you aren't using at least one Gunpowder skill on this set at all, it's going to be entirely wasted. It can't use for, say, an optic skill or a shooting skill or anything. It is exclusive only to people that are using Gunpowder skills. Again, Missile, Napalm, Hyper Missile. I believe Meteor also is counted in that if I do recall correctly. And of course, Power Missile and Power Napalm to add to that mix as well. So again, very solid set overall. It has very good synergy for making things explode as often and as destructively as they can. But it also is packing very strange synergy and is going to have a very unique weakness for anyone that is using, somehow, Gunpowder Guard.